Good evening. We will now commence this ULURP public hearing.
Good evening. I am Gregory E. Lewis, counsel to Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso. I've been designated the chair of this public hearing under the rules of the City of New York. This Uniform Land Use Review Procedure public hearing is being conducted from Brooklyn Borough Hall courtroom. On the agenda is one application currently under review by my office. Please note that this hearing is being recorded to comply with the Open Meetings Law. The video will be posted on the Brooklyn Borough Presidents YouTube channel. Following the applicant's presentation and a question and answer session, members of the public who are in attendance tonight will have the opportunity to testify on the application. All comments are limited to 2 minutes. Members of the public may also submit comments to AskReynoso at brooklynbp.nyc.gov for consideration until Monday, December 12th. Ms. Gusenfeld, please call the first item. Let's begin.
Calendar item number 1, 58 Nixon Court rezoning, 210170ZMK, 210171ZRK. This is an application by SLG Assets, Inc., pursuant to Sections 197C and 201 of the New York City Charter, affecting 5 lots between Murdoch Court and Shore Parkway within the Special Ocean Parkway District. The applicant seeks a zoning map amendment to change the project area from R5 to R7X with a C24 overlay over the development site, and a zoning text amendment to establish a coterminous mandatory inclusionary housing area. These actions would enable a 9-story building with 21 units, approximately 5 pursuant to MIH Option 1, and 700 square feet of commercial space on a triangular corner site on the south side of Nixon Court. The development would provide 8 accessory parking spaces on the ground floor and a 30-foot front yard to comply with the Special Ocean Parkway District regulations. Community Board 13 has not yet taken a position on this application. Will the applicant's representative please state your name and present this application?
I'd be happy to. My name is Eric Palatnik. Thank you for having me this evening. And I'm here tonight on behalf of Nixon Court, 64 Nixon Court, which is an application for a rezoning from the existing R5 zoning that's on the property now to an R7X zoning district. If it were to be approved, the proposal would allow for what you see in front of you, which is what you're looking at right now is a 9-story mixed-use residential development. The building stands at 94 feet, has an FAR of 5.5, which equates to a total of 19,000 square feet. The ground floor would have approximately 800 square feet of commercial space. There'd be 8 voluntary parking spaces, and there'd be approximately 21 apartments at option level 1 under the MIH, which would equate to approximately 5 affordable apartments. That is the request that we are here for today, and I'll walk you through a little bit about what we are proposing and what the existing landscape is right now, land use landscape. And I'll also comment on that we've had some preliminary meetings with the community board. We're in the middle of them. I know that members of the Borough President's office were in attendance at that and observed it, but that process is not yet done. We have also had some preliminary meetings with the councilman's office, where he has asked us to look at bringing the building height down, and we'll show you a proposal to do that here as well. That's included within this presentation. So with that as the backdrop, this is the site right here. It's on the top left. It is situated, that's a better perspective of it. That probably puts everybody who's from Brooklyn right in line with where we are. We are at the intersection of the Belt Parkway, which is down at the bottom of your screen, and Coney Island Hospital is at the right side, and that is the site right there. It's a triangular shaped site. It's about 3,500 square feet. It's more than adequate to accommodate a residential development, but it has not through the years. And the reason why it has not through the years is because it's been sort of a scrap piece from the development next door, which I believe is Trump Village to the left of it. as the years went on, that piece was left over for obvious reasons. Trump Village is a series of rectangular tower in the park developments with very tall residential brick buildings. You can see them on the left side of your screen. This is a triangular site, so it was left over after that, and it sat in a wayward state for years, almost looking as if it's a parkland. You can see right there on the top left, that is the site. But it's private land, and it's entitled to be developed upon. It could be built upon with an R5, under its R5 zoning designation. It is a buildable lot, but I'm here to describe to you the zoning request, because as you can see with the tall buildings all around it in these images, I would submit that the zoning for this portion of Coney Island Avenue, excuse me, I would submit that this portion is miszoned and Ocean Parkway, and it should be zoned at a higher density, not R5, which allows garden apartments. None of the existing buildings you see in this image would be allowed under the existing zoning. If the zoning were to be approved, the zoning district that we are proposing has been crafted so that we are including the building to the right of us within it, so it would bring that into a conforming status. That building is 12 stories tall, and that is the impetus of the R7X zoning designation. You can see here, this is the R7X proposal on the right side. The left side shows you the existing conditions. The right side shows you the proposed. We are in the Ocean Parkway sub-district right here. This is an idea for the R7X of what the justification for it, and we are, as I've demonstrated or spoken to before, we're trying to legalize, or I should say not legalize, but bring the building to the right of us into compliance with existing zoning. The ground floor would have a commercial use in it, a local retail. It has not yet been decided what kind of local retail. There's been a lot of talk about needs for some type of coffee shop or something of the like, or maybe a tailor or something similar. This is the building to the right of us. Just simply speaking from a land use perspective, the existing zoning is way out of context. The right side shows you how it's non-compliant with current zoning. It is currently 5 times overbuilt the existing floor area. It is currently 4 times almost as large and as tall as it's allowed to be. And you can see that in the lower right-hand corner. That's simply drawing out the obvious, that R5 zoning on Ocean Parkway is acting more as a block to development than accurately reflecting the as-built condition. And it's not blocking anybody except for this one remaining undeveloped lot on that stretch. This shows you what we could build here if it was to be approved. I think you're very familiar with all this. The left side just shows you, if you look at the second row, permitted residential floor area is 1.25. It's a very low-density zoning district in R5. It's really meant for the side streets of Brooklyn or the side streets of Queens or the side streets of Staten Island. It is not meant for a major intersection across from Coney Island Avenue and Ocean Parkway. This puts things in more context for you, so you could start to see the built conditions of the dense urban community within which we are proposing to locate this building. As you could see, you're seeing numbers around 65, 67, 66, 68 on the left side of your screen. Is the building in the middle right next to us? It's 108 feet. That's the 12-story we seek to legalize. Our building, if it were to be approved at a lower height that the councilman had suggested, would be at 74 feet. So I dare say it would fit very well within the land use context of the surrounding developments. As Marissa Tomei would say, and my cousin Vinny, it blends. This is the proposed development in the original iteration of 9 stories. I mentioned to you a moment ago, we've spoken to the councilman, and we are proposing to bring it down 1.5 stories. He felt as if a 7-story, 74 feet, would fit well within the surrounding community's context, and he held all final decision-making until everybody else weighs in on it, but that was his input. This is the 9-story building showing you what it looks like, but I'm going to jump ahead in a few minutes and show you the 7-story that we're proposing. I will call out the ground floor. First floor has parking. It has 8 parking spaces. No parking is required. That was done in response to requests for parking at the original meetings with the community board, and we have reduced the size of the building, as I'll show you in a few minutes, and the building now has 18 apartments. So there'll be 8 parking spaces for 18 apartments, and that's all voluntary parking. I know the Borough President is very concerned about sustainability and things of the like. We are in a flood zone. We will be providing, there will be dry flood proofing at the ground floor, and the building, all residences have been designed to be above the design flood elevation, and these are all of the The green features that we'll be including within the building, including electrical vehicle chargers, solar collecting windows, a green roof, and, well, we're not going to have a geopaved parking surface. That should have been taken out, but everything else is. This is option one of the way it lays out in the current configuration of apartments. This, again, was important to the council person when we spoke with them in our preliminary meetings. That would be at option level one. We would try to provide more affordable than that, but there's not much in the way of floor area in this development. It's a relatively small development. I'll click through and bring you to what we've spoken to with the councilman. This was an idea where originally we started with the R7X at a larger building, which is 9 stories. That's shown on your right side. R7X at the smaller building is shown on your left side. Rises to a total height of 74 feet 11 inches, which is at the top of the partial 8th floor, which is the bump up that you see there. So the building did come down a little bit in height since we started our proposal. It hasn't been finalized, but we did certify with the larger building, but this is how things are evolving. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. These are the plans, which are hard to read, but the left side shows you the parking spaces at 8 parking spaces. The right side shows you the ground floor commercial, and the floor plans are what you would expect. Nothing out of the ordinary there. And that is our application. I'd be happy to answer any questions or go back into anything, whatever you see fit.
Thank you. We do have a few questions. So first, please clarify what attempts were made to facilitate the proposed development through a BSA variance prior to pursuing a ULURP action.
There was no effort made to facilitate a BSA variance for it, and the reason being is because although there's a justification to ask for the yards, there would be no justification to ask for the height, and there would be no provision of affordable housing. So, and of course, there's no requirement to go to the BSA ahead of time. Also, it didn't help that the climate around the city of New York for the past decade under the previous administration was less than helpful with trying to accommodate people to try to take discretionary actions, which acted as a further stumbling block. Of course, the world has changed in the last few years, and this administration is incredibly more, how should I say it, willing to communicate with its citizenry, which is great, but that was also another reason why.
So a two-part question about the proposed zoning district. Given the stated height and number of stories in the original proposal, could you clarify why R7X MIH was selected as the requested district as opposed to R7D? And given the council members and the community board's position, is there a possibility that the requested district would be modified to R7D or even R7A MIH?
The building is actually almost a nearly complying R7A development. The reason it's been mapped at R7D is to give the ability for the building to its north to be a compliant building, which always is more helpful to a building such as that, which I believe is a co-op. So that way when they go to refinance the underlying land or take any actions on the land itself that the building rests upon, it's much easier for an entity to do that when the building is complying. Having said that, that was the driving force. Our building is a smaller building. It's not an R7X, and especially now that it's been brought down. So an R7A would be within our would be acceptable to us. The R7X was mapped so that it created a more cohesive land use plan that was more representative of the surrounding conditions. But even an R7A would bring the building next door closer into compliance and at the same time facilitate this development.
Please explain the rationale for providing voluntary parking on such a narrow development site.
I cannot give you any answer other than to say that that was demanded by the community. The community felt as if parking was tremendously important to them, and we've heard that from a couple of other people, that they feel as if the parking is incredibly important to them. The 8 spaces is more than would be required, even if it was required parking. It's a generous amount of parking. It is a small site, but the base of the triangular portion of the property is wide enough to accommodate 8 cars in it quite comfortably. And the local retail that we're trying to accommodate at the ground floor, we're in a flood zone, so we can't have residential. And the local retail we're trying to accommodate is really just a small local retail that we're trying to provide there. Something is a little bit of a service there to make some activation to the corner. So we're not trying to create a large retail space downstairs. nor do I think the community wants that. So the parking is kind of a win on both sides, because we have to go up anyway for the flood zone. I don't think anybody wants to see a larger store there, and people did like to see parking, so.
During your presentation, you'd said it was in response to a request from Community Board 13. Is that what you mean by the community?
Yes, yeah, Community Board 13, I'd gone out to them very early in the process to present the application to them about 2 years ago. And when I did, one of the discussion points that came up was the number of parking spaces. And even as I'm going through their land use process right now, there are certainly many comments made at the committee meeting saying that 8 spaces, why is there not more than that? And people are very, of course, interested in parking.
So based on the application documents, waiving the parking would potentially triple the available non-residential space. What efforts could be made to increase the rentable non-residential floor area, including commercial and community facilities?
You mean if we didn't, I assume you're asking if we didn't have the parking? Well, obviously, it would open up the door probably to either a use such as a medical office, which is probably in high demand there, given the proximity to the hospital, or it would open up for some other type of commercial use. The problem really, though, with the ground floor is that the ground floor also has the core of the building running through it. So it's not a wide open floor plate. There are stairways, and there's the elevator, and there's the mailboxes, and there's refuse, and there's circulation area, there's a lobby. So there's all those things. So it doesn't lay out so well as it doesn't lay out at all for one contiguous retail space. So if it were not to be commercial at that space, it would probably, at the ground floor, it would probably be either additional parking, although we can't get too many cars in the tip there, or it'd be some type of medical space maybe.
The project site is located near the intersection of 2 wide, busy roadways. What improvements would be made as part of this development to promote safer crossings on Ocean Parkway?
Well, I don't know if that, I think this project, we've heard a lot of comments. Obviously, the project is at a very busy intersection. But so is every single development that I drive past in New York City. I drove down 21st Street in Queens today. It's a busy roadway, buildings everywhere. There are buildings up against the roadways everywhere. I think what's good about this building is, if I go to the aerial here, is the main entrance to it is going to be on Nixon Court. Nixon Court is a very quiet residential street. It does not have a tremendous amount of traffic on it, vehicular traffic. It has just the people that live on it. You could see it there. So, and that's where the entrance for the vehicles is. That's where the entrance for the people that live there is going to be. So you're not going to have people just walking out and all of a sudden finding themselves in the middle of a heavily trafficked roadway, whereas it would be the case maybe if they were exiting onto Shore Parkway. And of course, at the tip of the property, which is shown here, we're not changing that in any way, shape, or form. You can see the site is very well crosswalked. It is an extremely active pedestrian corridor. If you go and you sit out there, I sat out there the other day, and a lot of people are going by of all different types. You have families, you have working people, you have people on bicycles. So although it is a busy intersection, I think it functions right now. I don't think the additional apartments are going to take away from that. The crosswalks are well marked, and our entrance is on a very quiet side street. So we're not, although we're situated on that corner, I don't think we'll be adding to any vehicular traffic on that corner or any further pedestrian interferences.
Okay, our final question. The required 30-foot landscaped front yard could accommodate sustainable features such as permeable pavers, rain gardens, and bicycle racks. Beyond tree plantings, what beneficial amenities do you envision for this portion of the site?
You just gave me a lot of good ideas. We hadn't really talked about it very much. It might be, this is the area you're talking about that's at the front there. We could start to talk about that and play that out a little bit more and get back to you. The architect has not shown anything in specific as far as how to treat it, and that could tie in to the conversation that we just had a moment ago about safety and things of the like. That could become some sort of quasi-public plaza area or some type of open area that people could be able to traverse across, or somehow give a little bit more of a wider sidewalk there if that's what you would like to see. But we could talk about that. I hadn't thought about it.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We will now call for testimony on this application. It's being indicated to me that no one has indicated the desire to testify on this application. So this ULURP public hearing is now closed. We will review the application and submit our recommendations to the City Planning Commission, which will hold its hearing at a later date. As a reminder, viewers may submit comments to askReynoso@brooklynbp.nyc.gov for consideration until Monday, December 12th. This public hearing is now adjourned.
Thank you. You're all here for a class, right? Is that what's going on? I was sweating while you were all coming in, thinking you were all here.